Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Reforged podcast. My name is Drew, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with you today. Today's episode, we're going to be continuing the series that we began last week about miracles that Jesus performed. I have rented out a little study room here so I can record my episode in here. Wasn't really a huge fan of the setup in the podcasting studio, so this is a little bit more minimalist, and I just like it better. So it's a pleasure to be speaking with you again this week. If you have any prayer requests, things that we could be praying for you as a community about this week, please drop them in the YouTube or the Spotify comment section, and I'd be happy to be praying for you and also give a shout out on the show so that others could be praying for you as well. And we can keep that anonymous as well if you would like. So I want to get into the message right away today. We're going to start with a reading from Luke 18. This picks up in verse 35. So this is Jesus healing a blind beggar. As he drew near to Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging, and hearing a crowd going by, he inquired what this meant. They told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by, and he cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And those who were in front of him rebuked him. They told him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and commanded him to be brought to him. And when he came near, he asked him, What do you want me to do for you? And he said, Lord, let me recover my sight. And so Jesus said to him, Recover your sight, for your faith has made you well. Immediately he recovered his sight and followed him, glorifying God, and all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God. So this section is a lot shorter than the one that we covered last week, but there is still, I think, a lot of very important content here. So first, we see as the scene is set, there's a man that's sitting on the roadside. He's begging. He's a blind man. He's on the road near Jericho. And Jesus is coming this way. And because Jesus has already begun his ministry at this point, he had gained some notoriety, some popularity. People were aware of his presence. They were aware he was coming. And in fact, they were excited. People really passionately wanted to see Jesus speak in a lot of cases. And so he heard this crowd coming by, preparing to see Jesus, and he was wondering why there was so much traffic, and he asked why, and the crowd told him that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. And so this blind man, as you can see by his reaction, verse 38, crying out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. This blind man is aware of who Jesus is, and he also believes that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of David, as prophesied. One of the sons of David, one of David's lineage, would end up being the Messiah. And so this blind man recognizes this, even though he can't see. He's heard the news and he's believed it in his heart. And so he calls out to Jesus, asking for mercy, asking for salvation from his brokenness. And I think this is really cool because what we learn from this blind man is that he recognizes the struggle that he's facing, in this case being blind physically, is prohibiting him from living the best life that he could be. And so he asks God to heal his sight. Now, I think that in this case, it's a physical need that the blind man recognizes that he wants from Jesus. But in the case of our lives, there's also other kinds of needs, spiritual needs and emotional needs, as well as physical needs that we may need from Jesus. And it's really important that the blind man in this case is asking for sight, because I think that's something that we often need to ask for as Christians as well. Maybe not physical sight, but we need the ability to see what God has in store for us, to see the path that he has planned out for us so that we can clearly follow it. We need our road to be marked out for us so we can walk upon it. And another thing that I think is really interesting is that the crowd that is around Jesus and this man, the crowd is actually telling the man to be silent. Now, this probably isn't meant to be malicious. It's probably because this crowd recognizes that Jesus is holy, that they're having a very unique and special moment right now. And simply, they just want to make sure that full attention and full glory is pointed to Jesus. But silencing this man when he's actually trying to search for Jesus, I think is a really big part of what holds back a lot of people from Christianity in today's world. I think there's so many cases where people come to recognize that there's a need in their life, as we mentioned, needs like physical needs with health or security or finances, or maybe spiritual needs, feeling empty, lacking purpose, lacking love, or emotional needs, facing anxieties or depressions or strife. Um, there's so many people that recognize that they have these problems and they start beginning the process of searching how they could possibly find some kind of reprieve from it, how they could have that problem fixed, how they could improve their lives. And they start looking and they could find Jesus, but uh, oftentimes there's not a strong enough voice guiding them to Jesus. But in many cases, too, as a society, we almost tell people just to either be comfortable with their problems or that their problems are the same as everyone else has ever faced, or that no one is worthy of taking care, or sorry, not that no one is worthy, that they're not worthy of having their problems taken care of. There's a lot of cases where we have this mentality that we need to accept everything about ourselves and we need to deny the fact that we're going through hard times. We have to put on this facade that says everything is fine. And that goes two ways, I think, in today's culture. It goes to the point where when we experience immorality, when we experience sin and depravity in our lives, oftentimes we're encouraged to continue partaking in it because oftentimes we're encouraged to continue partaking in it because if it's something that we want, it must be good. And that can lead to some pretty damaging things. But other times, too, we face some really serious and very real and common struggles um, with our mental and our spiritual health, where we're just feeling down because of our human condition. We're facing the stress of our work or our education, and we're facing, disagreements or fights within a family or maybe even loss, and we're experiencing a lot of these different things, and it's a lot for the human heart and the human soul to handle. And so naturally, we can develop symptoms of feeling burnt out or depressed or anxious. And a lot of times the common prescription is that that's just part of who you are and you need to accept that, and you get stuck in it, you never move on from it. And so in this case, the blind man actually recognizes that Jesus is someone who can bring healing into his life, in this case, physically, right? But I think it goes the same for all of us as Christians, that Jesus can help us through all matter of afflictions we walk through in our life. And we need to be very open and upfront about coming to him ourselves whenever we need it, but also encouraging others to do the same. Because in this case, the crowd is actually trying to, not intentionally, I don't think, but they're basically leading the man or trying to lead the man away from Jesus because they're telling him to be silenced, to keep his struggles and his problems to himself. Um, and they have this false conception of who Jesus is, that he's a holy figure, so he's unapproachable by the ailments of man. But instead, I think that Jesus asks us to come to him and give him these. A verse I want to real quick just throw in is Psalm 119, and it's your word is a lamp unto my feet. They make straight my paths. The the Lord actually guides us in our lives. He is the metaphor of light is used a lot because the presence of God is the certainty of what's ahead of us and behind us, where we're at, and also that light is following us. It's illuminating our path, that we can see where we're supposed to go from there. It's really a beautiful image to think of God as like a lantern we always have at our sides, that when we shine the light of God onto every situation that we walk into, what we need to do, although maybe isn't always immediate clear, although maybe isn't always easy, we do know that since we're walking with God, that He is with us and He will lead us to where we're supposed to go if we follow Him. And so this man recognizes that, and despite what the crowd tells him to try to get him to be silent so they can welcome Jesus, Jesus actually stops besides the man, and he says, "What do you want me to do for you?" And Jesus actually, yeah, asks the man if what ailment he's having. He wants to know the man more personally, understand what he's struggling with, and the man tells him up front. He comes to him with the need, "Lord, recover my sight. And Jesus tells him that because he has been faithful, because he believed that Jesus was capable of doing this thing, that his sight would be restored. And it was. And that's a really powerful, moving thing because it shows that, in fact, it's true that Jesus does want to hear from us. He wants to know what ails us, what bothers us, and he wants to lift those burdens from us. He wants to help us through our struggles and hard times by carrying the weight of what we're going through with us. And in many cases, miraculously healing us from the things that cause us strife. And I want that to be the takeaway is that Jesus heals the man's sight because he was faithful, because he believed. And so when we believe that Jesus is capable of taking care of the things that we struggle with in life, again, this doesn't mean that everything that we face immediately goes away. God is not a genie, right? But to know that Jesus walks into these situations with us and he picks up these burdens, he carries them alongside us, and he helps us through it. And to know that although it may not look the way that we expect, it may not be in the timing we expect, to know that he will bring us through to goodness out of every situation. I think that although the physical example of sight is used in this passage, it's sort of almost a bigger metaphor that Jesus helps to be the guiding light for our path, as was said in Psalm 119, with God being the lamp unto the feet. Jesus gives us sight to see outside of the things that we're struggling with, to see him for who he really is and how he loves us, to see his glory, and also to see where we're supposed to go next. And the man was faithful to Jesus. He asked Jesus to give him sight. He wanted Jesus to show him how powerful he was, how powerful that he could perform a miracle of healing sight. But also for us, we need to ask Jesus to give us sight to walk in righteousness, to do what is right in our lives, to see past whatever we're struggling with, and to pursue a relationship with him above all things. So if I could leave you with one thing this week, it would be that as you go through your life today, whether you're facing new situations or familiar ones, whether you're starting a new job, going to a new school, just started a family, or whether you've had a family for many years, or you've been going to the same job, working with the same company for many years, whether you're in some of your later years of school, whatever situation you're walking into, you know, God God has you there for a purpose, and He can use you. You have to ask Him to show you how that is, and you have to ask Him to show you that He's with you, that He has plans for you for your prosperity, but also plans to use you for the greater good of those around you. So really draw close to God this week. Come in prayer, a meditation on the scriptures. Focus on how you can find a purpose in your life, how you can see God walking alongside you, where He's leading you, what He wants from you, not just what you want from Him, but how He can effectively use you today and during this week. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It is a little bit of a shorter one, but I think that the point is very simple and sweet, but very, very impactful. So I hope that you took away something from it. I hope God was able to speak through me to you today. So thank you so much for listening once again. If you have, again, any prayer requests, please leave them in the comments. So we can be praying for you. If you enjoyed this show, make sure to follow it either on YouTube or Spotify. Make sure that you turn on notifications so you're aware when there's a new episode. I try to do it almost every Friday. That's typically the schedule. Sometimes it's a little bit later than that, or I have to take a week off for things that pop up. But make sure that you're sharing this show with any friends or family that you think might benefit from hearing it. You are the hands and feet of this ministry, just as we're all the hands and feet of Christ Jesus and His ministry. The way that this show reaches more and more people is by you enjoying it and then sharing it with others so that they can hear it and benefit from it as well. So please make sure to do that. I appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you for listening to me this week, and I hope that you guys have a great and God bless rest of your week and enjoy that weekend. And remember, as always, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another.